let's get down to practice and create our first EBS volumes. To do this, we will go to our EC2 console and we will launch an instance. We will, as usual, take our Amazon Linux 2 in T2 micro because it is eligible for the free offer. As for the instance details settings, I'm going to leave everything as default since we are dealing with storage here. So we arrive here on Add Storage. So we have our root volume on which our operating system will be installed, which has 8 GB. This is a GP2 disk. One could choose IOPS or standard DHDD low-cost magnetic disk. We will see later on the notion of IOPS, which means input and output per second. Here it's possible to choose the behavior at standstill. You can delete the termination or not. You can encrypt our disk or not. We won't encrypt it here because this is not what this module needs. Let's have some fun. We will add an EBS volume that we will mount on dev.SDB. The snapshot is not needed for the moment. We will see later when we have created it how to restore our volume from the snapshot. We will set the size to 2 GB. We will stay on GP2. The default options, here the character delete on termination. Since the data persists on this disk, we will keep it, which means we will not delete it when our instance is terminated. In the same way, we will not put a figure on it. Here we can see that customers eligible for the free offer can get up to 30 GB of general purpose EBS, SSD or magnetic storage. I will therefore be able to accumulate up to 30 GB of storage space for one instance. We will add a tag in order to identify our EBS storage spaces. We'll put a tag name. And we will say it's going to be EBS demo. At the security group level, we will select an existing security group, the one of my first instance, which guarantees us access to port 22, at least for SSH. I check and I launch my instance. At the key pair level, I keep the use of my initial key pair from my first instance. My instance is being launched. Our instance is launched, so here we can find the information about our storage volumes. We have the root device on which is installed our boot tape, which is on our first disk of 8 GB /dev/xvda. This volume is also a volume in block mode, so it appears below with our /dev/sdb. We will click on our volumes. We see how it's organized in terms of our volumes in the AWS console. We can see here in the EBS demo that I have a volume here that corresponds to our root volume of 8 GB and here our additional volume, an EBS of 2 GB that has been added. Now that we have our two volumes running, we can connect to our instance to see how it looks inside the system. To do this, we will connect to our machine. Here we are connected to our instance, and so to check the state of the hard disk, we will launch a basic Linux command. To list our hard drives and for editing. We can see here that we have our XVA disk with a XVVA1 partition whose mount point is / thus the root of our system. We have our second volume XVDB, which is not yet mounted in our system. So what we are going to do is we are going to edit our volume in our system. So for that, we will refer to AWS documentation. Here we are on the AWS documentation, and we can make an Amazon EBS volume available for use on a Linux system. Just follow the documentation. The first command we executed is the svlk command, which allows us to see what volumes exist on our system as well as the mount points associated with these volumes. We carried out our order and we saw that we had two partitions, one of 2 GB and one of 8 GB, with a point of mounting to / for the first and no point of mounting for the second. In the documentation, it's explained to us that to know the type of file system that is installed on our volume, we must execute the command file -s with the name of our volume as argument. So we will execute this command. So sudo file -s from /dev/xvdb . This returns data to me, that is, there is no file system mounted as explained here. If we have this, it doesn't work. If we have a file system installed on our volume, we will have more information like this. We will continue reading the documentation and we will create a file system on our volume. For this, we have the command mkfs -t xfs, which will be the type of file system. We will use ext4, which is the standard on Linux servers. We will execute the command mkfs -t. In ext4 from /dev xvdb. We have some information that has come in, so our formatting has been done well. I clean my screen. If there is an error like mkfs.xfs cannot be found, you can always solve this problem by installing xfs proct, which is a distribution kit. We didn't have that problem, so we will move on to the next step. What we will be able to do is to create the folder in which our volume will be mounted. mkdir/data. Then what we are going to do is we are going to mount our volume on this file. We will execute the command sudo mount . /dev xvdb . in /data. There is no mistake. We will redo the lsblk command. to see if we have something mounted. Here we can see that we have XVVA, or 8 GB root disk, that is already mounted on the root slash, and now our XVDB, which is mounted on slash data. We will have the possibility to move in slash data to create a file. Hello.text. We need to correct rights, sudo, sudo touch hello.text, and we will be able to go into this file and write a message. Hello to all. We save, and we find ourselves in our newly mounted volume with a hello text file including a hello to all message. We continue to read the documentation. Now that this is done, we have the possibility of making this mount point persistent after the reboot, because this is a one-time operation, so each time we reboot our machine, we will have to remount our hard disk. To do this, we will modify a configuration file called /etc/fstab. We will save this file before modifying it. So sudo cp/etc/fstab. In /etc/fstab.origin. Now we can modify our file sudo nano /etc/fstab. Here we already have a volume that is mounted. What we are going to say is that we are going to mount our volume, which is at /dev/xvdb. Then we will indicate the folder in which we want to mount our volume, so in /data. We will also indicate the type of file system, so ext4, and then we have default values, so here defaults, no fail, 0 and 2. We will save our file. We restart our machine, so we did a reboot. If we run our lsblk command again, following the modification of the fstab file, we find ourselves at reboot with our second partition, our second EBS volume mounted in /data in our instance.